Welcome to another edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy. It is the CFL Division Finals edition of the show. 2 CFL shows left for the season. Of course, we'll tee up the East and West final on this show. And next week, it'll be our Grey Cup preview show. And I think we're going to do a couple of shows regarding the Grey Cup. We have Rob Vino scheduled to join me next week for to talk Grey Cup and also some NFL and college football. And we'll try to do a CFL Grey Cup only show next week as well with Will Arndt. Will's not able to join me this week, so it is just a solo show with yours truly this week to talk about the CFL Division Finals. So without further ado, let's get into it. And before I actually get into the 2 Division Finals, I think the potential for 2 great matchups here, Montreal and Hamilton in the East, BC and Saskatchewan in the West. How about a sweep of the board for yours truly in the CFL Division semifinals last week? What a week it was. We had Montreal double result, cash. Montreal minus the points. We squeezed that one out. It cashed. Montreal team total over. It cashed. That was the bet I liked the most in that game. No sweat at all with that Alouettes team total. They almost went over that team total in the first half against Winnipeg last week. And then in the BC Calgary game, this one was a bit of more of a sweat, but it all got there in the end. We took both teams over their team total, especially BC team total over against Calgary, the full game over. So it was great to cash those as well. And a 2-0 best bet sweep. I used the Alouette team total over for a best bet. Will Arndt used the BC Calgary over for a best bet. So clean sweep last week with the CFL Division semifinal bets. And hopefully we got some more winners for you in the 2 Division Finals this weekend. Let's begin with a game. I will be there on Saturday, as I always am at Hamilton Stadium. The Hamilton Ticats taking on the Montreal Alouettes. Hamilton with the bye. Hamilton East Division champs. Hamilton gets to host the East Final, but it's the Montreal Alouettes favored in this game. Currently 3-point road favorites. 52.5 the total here in this game on Saturday. First things first, I'll get the weather out of the way immediately. I don't think we're going to see many weather issues here with either game. It looks like the weather is going to be fine in Hamilton. It's going to be above freezing, mix of sun and cloud, not much wind. And West Final, BC, Saskatchewan, it'll be colder out there, but no precipitation and no wind there. So weather should be fine for both of these games. The Hamilton Tiger Cats, I think, are going to have their hands full here. Now, Hamilton is a good team. They are capable of winning this game. But I will reiterate something that I know I have said on the CFL Football Frenzy all season. I just don't know if Hamilton wins this division if schedule and circumstance doesn't break right for them like it did. Let's keep in mind that most of Hamilton's wins, of the 11 they had in the regular season, most of them were against the group of Toronto, Ottawa, Edmonton, teams that did not make the playoffs this year in the CFL. When you look at how they played against the playoff-bound teams, they split with BC, and they were very fortuitous to win the game in BC that they did because they were trailing by double digits and erased that deficit in the final 5 minutes of the game. But they split with BC. Other than that, they played Calgary, and they got swept twice. They got swept. They lost both games. They played Saskatchewan. They lost both games. They played Winnipeg and beat Winnipeg at home, but that was the game that Chris Strevler started for Winnipeg, and he was brutal in that game. I still remember it. They went to Winnipeg and played the Bombers, and they got their doors blown off 40-3, and Zach Collaros was starting that game for Winnipeg. The Montreal victories, they swept the season series against Montreal. That's why they're hosting the East Final instead of going to Montreal. Yeah, but they beat Montreal twice without Davis Alexander, who just happens to be now, after last week's win against Winnipeg, 12-0 as a CFL starting quarterback, 11-0 in the regular season, and now 1-0 in the playoffs. Well, Hamilton beat Montreal twice this year during the regular season, but one game was McLeod Bethel Thompson at quarterback, and the other was James Morgan at quarterback. Neither one holds a candle to Davis Alexander. So the Ticats caught a break. They faced Montreal without Davis Alexander in either game. Now they're going to face Montreal not only with Davis Alexander and having to face him for the first time. Montreal's as healthy as they've been all year. There was some question later in the week, the last day or two, about Austin Mack, but Austin Mack says he's going to be good to go. And that receiving core, Mack, Philpott, Speaker, Rambo, it's fully healthy. It is a very strong Sneed. I mean, it's a very strong receiving core. It's very deep. They've got a quarterback that went healthy. He showed it all season long. He showed it again in the East Division semifinal last week that he's a very difficult quarterback to contain. He can throw. He has great ability to move. He's mobile. He can throw accurately more often than not on the run. It is a difficult offense to handle with Davis Alexander at the controls. And this Hamilton defense, throughout the course of the season, there's still questions and concerns I have for it. The pass rush is inconsistent. Some games Julian Hauser takes over, and some games you can't find him with a telescope on the field. Some games the secondary shuts down the opposing receivers, and then other times, they're getting carved up. And this is a secondary that's got some good pieces on it when you think of Jamal Peters and Stavros Katsantonis and Reggie Stubblefield, former Alouette, now playing for the Ticats. They're supposed to have a pretty good secondary, but there's been times when even that unit has been a little bit leaky. So I don't know if this Hamilton defense is, quite frankly, ready to handle what the Montreal offense is going to throw at them. Because the last time we saw Hamilton in a game against a good opponent, good competition, was a home loss to Calgary, and Vernon Adams Jr. just shredded the defense. They couldn't stop Dedrick Mills. And the inability at times for the Ticats to stop the run is also a concern here because, yes, Montreal has had Travis Tice banged up. They've obviously had Sean Thomas Erlington banged up. They cut Walter Fletcher before the season started. But Stevie Scott is the guy that really stepped up and had a great performance as the lead running back for Montreal in the victory against Winnipeg last week. And Stevie Scott was a good college running back, too, at Indiana years ago. So he showed he could step up and really be productive on the ground running the football. And that's another element that I worry about for the Ticats, is how do you handle Stevie Scott running the football here for the Montreal Alouettes in this game. I think Montreal gets their points. Cashed a ticket with Montreal team total over last week. I'm running it back here. You guys know that I'm totally unbiased when it comes to the Ticats. I will give you an honest opinion. I will bet on them. I will bet against them. And I worry about this matchup for them. I think Montreal's favored here for a very good reason. So Montreal team total over 27.5. You can get that at around even money. I think it's hard not to take the over at 52.5 in this game. It's actually gone up to 53.5 in some spots. Weather's going to be good enough. I think the Alouettes, go and look at every Montreal game this year and that offense when Alexander's been healthy and he's played. They've gotten basically to 28-plus points in every game that he started pretty much. So I think they're going to get to 28 here as well. And can you get 20? Montreal, I think 28's the low point of what they'll score. There's a chance they get 31-35 in this game, in my opinion, against the Ticats. But I think Hamilton can get into the 20s, and if Montreal gets into the mid-30s and Hamilton gets into the 20s, this game's going over the total, and I think it's got a good chance for that. Let's keep in mind, Montreal's defense is as healthy as they've been all year, but it doesn't look like they're going to have Mustafa Johnson on the D-line. They've obviously had issues. They had to dismiss one of their players too because of an incident as far as the defensive line is concerned. So it's Sean Oakman. There we go. I was blanking on the name. Sean Oakman. So, and that defense against Winnipeg moved the football. They just turned it over a ton, but when they weren't turning the football over, Winnipeg was moving the ball on that Montreal defense. So I don't think Montreal's defense is going to shut down Bo Levi Mitchell and the Ticats offense from start to finish. Hamilton will get theirs. Hamilton will get some points. Hamilton will score some touchdowns. Hamilton will have some success moving the football. So I think Montreal gets into the 30s. Hamilton at least into the low to mid-20s. And there you go. Over the total, I think, gets there here at 52.5. And I like Montreal's team total over 27.5 here once again. I mean, as far as the point spread's concerned, I wouldn't lay more than 3 with Montreal, but as long as this does not get above -3, I would still lean in that Montreal direction. I think they could emerge here victorious, and it's just not an easy thing to say, yeah, a guy that hasn't lost in the CFL as a starting quarterback is going to lose. It's not hard to make, it's not easy to make that kind of prediction. That, hey, Davis Alexander hasn't lost a game in the CFL, but he's going to lose here. And I don't think it's going to happen. I just don't. I hope, as a Ticat fan, it's funny. As a bettor, I kind of hope I'm right because I like Montreal team total over, and I think they're going to score points. I would love it. Here's what I would love as a Ticat fan. Give me 38-35 Hamilton. Hamilton somehow wins the game. Montreal still puts up the points, and the game goes over the total, and my Ticats get to the Grey Cup and will be and move on to Winnipeg next week to be in the Grey Cup. That would be the most perfect result possible. I'd love it, but I'm not sure it's going to happen. I do think Montreal is going to end up coming into Hamilton, getting the job done, and advancing to the Grey Cup. And look, if you remember on the season preview show, my Grey Cup prediction was Montreal versus Saskatchewan right from the very beginning of the season. So I'm not going to deviate from that too much. Although, as we transition to the West final here, BC and Saskatchewan, with Saskatchewan 3-point home favorites, 53.5 the total. I did pick Montreal, Saskatchewan Grey Cup before the season. I think obviously Saskatchewan, they've got home field, they've got the bye week, a chance to get everybody healthy. Although I think they were hoping to get their best receiver, one of their best receivers, Keyshawn Johnson, healthy as well and back for this game. But apparently that's not going to be the case. They were hoping to get him back. Corey Mace mentioned that there was probably a good chance he could return, but he is not back, unfortunately, for this game for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. When you look at the matchups here with BC and Saskatchewan down the stretch, okay, you go back to, I don't know, what would I say, mid-September, late September. This team was not playing as well from that point on as they did the first half of the season. First half of the season, Saskatchewan was really looking impressive. They had multiple really strong performances, on both sides of the football. Their defense is as good as any defense in the CFL. Their ball hawking defense. Now, again, they can give up yards and big plays too, but they force turnovers. They got a pretty good red zone defense as well. And that's really what's kept Saskatchewan's defense among the best in the CFL. But you look at the Riders' performances since they beat Winnipeg back-to-back on Labor Day weekend and then the Banjo Bowl. They end up getting beaten by a McLeod Thompson-led Montreal team, 48-31 at home. They lose outright as favorites at Edmonton. They have a very lackluster offensive performance from Trevor Harris in a narrow win against a bad Ottawa team, 20-13. Toronto 27-19. Again, they didn't play that sharp, that great in that particular game either. And then they lose 17-16 to Winnipeg, although that game they were resting guys. But the games that mattered, for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, because throw out BC and Winnipeg to end the season. They lost those games. They didn't matter. They had already clinched the West. The Toronto game that they won by 8 at home was not a great performance. The 7-point win at Ottawa was not a great performance. And they lost to Edmonton, and they got bludgeoned by McLeod Thompson at home. So you could say that Saskatchewan not only didn't play their best football with all the starters in those games I mentioned, but now they haven't played meaningful football in the last 2 games of the regular season and the bye week, and now they've got to try to flip the switch and get it, revved up and all cranked up again. That's not easy. And, we have seen instances here in the CFL with its playoff format where the bye week can hurt you sometimes, where you're not able to turn it up. You're not able to bring your best when it's needed in the division final, when you've had a bye week and you've finished the season playing multiple games that didn't matter. Look at Toronto when Montreal upset them in the East final a couple of years ago. An incredible regular season, but Toronto was playing basically out the string for a good chunk of the last few games of the regular season. Then they got to the East final against Montreal, and Chad Kelly had a nightmare day. And there's Montreal as almost a double-digit dog going into Toronto and beating them and leading wire to wire. Now, I'm not saying BC is going to do that here to Saskatchewan, but it does speak to some of the concern that you might have with a team that does get that bye week following multiple games that were glorified exhibition games. That is something you have to factor in here. Not to mention Nathan Rourke's one hell of a special quarterback. And this BC offense, going back to mid-July, I mean, go look at the results. And, with all these weapons, of course, and Javon Catoy, Justin McGinnis, Barry Hill, Aiden Eberhardt, they've certainly still got plenty of receivers, like Keon Hatcher. Go and look at BC's points that they have put up since the middle part of July. It's uncanny. Since July 13, week 6, where they beat Edmonton 32-14, they've scored 32, 27, 33, 41, 36, 34, 33, 38, 52, 27, 38, 37, 27, and then last week in their division semifinal win against Calgary, 33 points. Their team total at Bet365 is 23.5. Other books have it at 24.5. Even better if you can get it below the key number of 24. But even if all you can get is 24.5, BC has not scored fewer than 27 points since early July. Think about that. Since early July, week 5 of the CFL season is the last time the BC Lions scored fewer than 27 points. And so I know Saskatchewan's defense is capable. And I also know that even though BC got to 33 points, that was not a great offensive performance for Rourke and the Lions. They looked a little off. They looked a little out of sync. And you have to give Calgary's defense some credit. But a lot of the points were special teams points, setting up the offense on a short field. There was a lot of that in the output for BC last week in the game against Calgary. But the way I see it is, you know what? Nathan Rourke doesn't usually have 2 games kind of like that in a row. I could see him playing well. And I just think when he is playing like this, like his subpar games are the ones where he's scoring 27 points. I think, like that, those have been some of his worst games since mid-July, the ones where he scores 27. And then in the games where he's lighting it up and he it almost looks like he can't be stopped, those are the games they're scoring 37, 38. They had the 52-point game in Calgary. I just think to get BC team total at 23.5, minus 130 at Bet3. I mean, that's, you got to bet. I have to bet it. And I think they could even, like with Saskatchewan, I respect the ball hawking secondary. Up front, they're pretty solid. But when you have a mobile quarterback like Nathan Rourke, he can move, he can throw on the run, he can suddenly open up throwing lanes for his offense because of his athleticism. That may be something that even a good defense like Saskatchewan is not completely able to handle. And to me, it's just BC can score 24 points in their sleep, it seems like, this year at least, with what we've seen from Rourke and the offense. So I love the team total for BC over 23.5. Not that I don't mind taking 3.5 with BC, but I could see Saskatchewan moving the ball too. To me, BC's defense, I don't trust them. I don't trust them fully. And obviously Calgary's offense, when they got rolling last week against BC's defense had a hard time containing them. But what Saskatchewan offense shows up? Is it the offense that in June, July, into mid to late or into early September, that offense with Trevor Harris in particular was playing at a very high level, but there was some decline. There was some tailing off of the quality and the production of the Saskatchewan offense late in the season. Can they get back to that earlier in the season level against a defense that has prone to be leaky at times, like BC's? That's going to be the big battle. If they can, then the Saskatchewan can win this game, cover this number. But I like the BC team total over 23.5 much more than I like BC plus 3.5, because I could easily see a scenario where 27-24 Saskatchewan, 28-27 Saskatchewan, 30-27 Saskatchewan, 35-27 Saskatchewan, where Saskatchewan gets their points, Saskatchewan wins this game, but BC still goes over their team total. And that's the beauty of betting the Lions team total over. You don't have to worry about point spreads. You don't have to worry about margins. All you have to worry about is the BC offense and a guy that is in the running to be the most outstanding player in the CFL this season, who's had an incredible year, Nathan Rourke. All you have to worry about is him doing what he's done all season since the middle part of July, and that's lead this BC offense to at least 27 points. And I think he's capable of doing that here in this game. So BC team total over 23.5. I love it. 24.5. I co-sign it. Go ahead, bet it, even if 24.5 is the best you can get with the BC Lions team total. I think that's the best way to go. I think I'm a little bit more back and forth on this point spread. I'm a little bit more back and forth on the total for the game. It's difficult for me to bet unders with BC, but I like the over a bit more in the Montreal-Hamilton game than I like it in this game. The bet that I like the most clearly is BC team total over. And I'm going to say Saskatchewan wins 20. I'm going to say 31-27 Saskatchewan. That's going to be my final score. Saskatchewan survives and wins, but BC does go over their team total in defeat. And that's the beauty of betting this team total over for BC. Just score 27. Just do what you've done for months now. Who cares if you win or lose? If you're betting the team total over, that's your mindset. Who cares if BC wins or loses? Just get to 27 points. And again, this is something the BC Lions offense has done repeatedly since the middle part of July here in this CFL season. All right, there you have it. Those are that's my preview and analysis for the two division finals. Let's wrap it up with a best bet for the East and West final. And for best bet for me, I used Montreal team total over last week. I'm going to use another team total over this week, but I'm going to go to the game we just talked about. BC Lions, team total over 23.5, minus 130. It's a great number. At Bet365 is where I bet it yesterday. It's a great number, below the key number of 24. A lot of books have 24.5, and I like it at that number too. Again, this BC team has been just about good for 27-plus points going all the way back to July, and I think they reached that plateau again on Saturday in the West Final. BC Lions team total over 23.5, minus 130 for my CFL Division Final best bet. That'll wrap up this edition of the show. Thanks for tuning in. Hit the like button on the way out. I'm Ian Cameron. Enjoy the CFL Division Finals and good luck. And we'll be back next week to preview the CFL Grey Cup right here on Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy.